You're not here by mistake. You're not broken. You're waking. This isn't information. This is transformation. So, listen closely. Not to learn, but to remember who you always wanted to be. Let's begin.
Imagine hearing these words: You must leave your father's house and cleave to your wife. So it is written. And two of you must become one. What a strange conversation. Those are the instructions we're told in the book of Genesis 2:24. And what I'm about to share with you, it's a secret that even the most elite churches in this world have not yet been able to bold speak about it or have grasped the understanding beneath it. In this podcast, we always unveil the scriptures and leave them bare naked to its spiritual meaning, because Apostle Paul gave us these instructions. The spirit gives life, but the letter kills. My name is Alpha Mshihiri, and I'm excited to host this podcast where we are talking about leaving your father's house. A fantastic conversation, especially at the beginning of the year, because it allows us to set a stage of what is before us as we go in this amazing journey of spiritual eliteness. And if you're listening, you must be a spiritual elite. Who is a spiritual elite? Is any person who, in some form or fashion, they feel inadequate in some areas of their life. You are struggling. It could be a marriage, financial, or sometimes you are wrestling with some issues spiritually. You're looking for a path forward, or have experienced boredom from the same regurgitated message that you've been hearing from the puppet. Not the puppet, but puppet, if that's the case. Potato, potatoes, don't throw stones at me. I am just learning. And I have an excuse. English is my second language. That's just laziness. But guess what? In this case, I will exercise that form of laziness. But regardless, if you're sitting there on the edge, you've been in life where you have tried things and you find yourself 2026 experiencing life, challenges and difficulties that you had seen them in 2025. Not yet. You have seen them in 2024, and some of them can go as far as they have been. I come across a lot of people. They will tell you that they remember 5 years ago, they were struggling paying their bills. And they come today in this drinking of a kumbaya and they said, "Oh my God, life is so difficult. I can't pay my bills." I said, "What about 5 years ago? Were you comfortably paying your bills? Were you comfortably healthy? Were you comfortably with the political drama that was going on then?" And so they recognize that they have been reliving the same life over and over. And before I go further, I want to invite you in that discovery journey. Wherever you are, as long as you're not driving, operating a machine, you can partake in this discovery moment. Let's picture, but take a deep breath. Hold it for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. And exhale it in a long exhale for 4 seconds. And you can repeat it 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You've held it, and for 4 seconds, we're releasing. You feel relaxed. In that moment of relaxation, I want us to travel in a journey. Let's assume 10 years ago from now. Picture, look around. How was your finances? Were they consistent with your obligations? Were you living comfortably? Where you meet your obligations joyfully, you paid every bill, there were no overdraft fees, you literally used your credit card. And if you did, was only to use it and just pay it at the end of the month. Your credit cards were always half spent. Is that what you were? How you're economical overall? Were you having saving? Were you building an investment? How all of that looked like 10 years ago? How was your health? How was your relationship? If it's a marriage or just casual relationship, how was your professional life? What did you feel? I want you to see the feeling you had then and look at something else. Look at your social life. How are you feeling about social environment? How excited you are about what life is all about at the moment? Did you go to church or a mosque? How exciting was it? How did you feel about the information that we're using if you could translate to action that will truly bring the results into your life? Because in Quran there's this saying, Allah does not help those who are not going to help themselves. So is the information that you receive was sufficient to allow you to help yourself so Allah can extend that help in your life? While in the scriptures, there's another saying, you will know them by their fruits. Is the fruits that you had 10 years ago a reflection of what you wanted to be known to? You wanted to be known as a person who is living life fully, joyfully, healthier, successfully. Are the environment in your finances, in your relationship, is your social status was all exemplify of that, or you were faking it then? Let's fast forward. What about 5 years ago? Repeat the same routine of examining each and every area of your life. How did it fare compared to 10 years ago or 5 years then? Compare the two. Financially, socially, economically, health-wise. What were the political environment that inspired you, invigorate you? How did you feel about the political climate at the time? What were your views then, 5 years and years later, 5? What was it going on in your life then? Is there a similarity between the 5 years prior to the 5 years later? What are the issues that seems to be resonate that were similar, reoccurring again 5 years later? What was frustrating you? What was invigorating you? And where you were seeing results, and out of frustration, did you come up with a solution that actually translate that frustration into a solution that gives you joy? I want you to look at that, both in the finance, in the economic. When we talk about finance, means were you paying your bill consistently, meeting your obligations? Your credit card was not maxed. And we talk about economically, were you building a financial foundation, both by meeting your obligations now and building a financial future for tomorrow that is stable, that is consistent, that is growing? Were you doing that? Were you saving? Or were you constantly saving and going and digging into your saving and bringing it back and continue repeating this exercise? Those 5 years apart, what was consistent? What was a reoccurring theme in your life? Let's fast forward that track to 3 years ago. What was happening 3 years ago? Is it a reflective of 2 years before and 5 years prior? Repeat the same exercise 3 years ago and let's review it today. In fact, I would encourage you to write that theme that you saw 10 years ago. And then what was the recurring theme or something new in 5 years ago? And then what happened in 3 years ago? And let's draw another theme that we're seeing in all of these areas and create a score now. Lay down your papers and examining each and every one of them and see what is a recurring pattern that is happening across all. Maybe your finances, you were always struggling financially. Maybe in the relationship, you had hard time connecting, building, elevating. Maybe it's a marriage that seems to be stalling. It was a dying machine. It's a dinosaur that died over and over, and it's just sitting there like a shell. Maybe it's your economy. You struggle building a future that you wanted to live in. Maybe your social status. Maybe politically, you were always moved by all these political movements that were happening each and every time. And you became a puppet. You became a flag that the wind will move in one direction or the other. I want Democrats, and then when Democrats comes in, you feel lost. I want Republican, and when Republican comes in, you feel lost. You champion and said, I want the Republican, and the Republican comes in, and you're like, but that's not what I wanted. But you said you wanted Republican. You hated the Democrats, and you repeat this cycle over and over. I want this, I want that. Do you find that theme reoccurring? I want you to take this journey. Take a moment and just examining your life in this manner and order. And once you've done it, list out those reoccurring themes that you've noticed 10 years ago. They reoccurred 5 years ago. And again, 3 years ago. And so there they are just now. If you can do that, you have done an assessment of inventory of your life in a way that 98% of the population in this world have never tried to do before. So, having done that, I want to congratulate you because you've taken a step with what I call a discovery. You have done something very simple that many have never done in their lives, and they will walk away out of this earth without having done so. You have exercised the very instruction that are given in the book of Genesis, chapter 24. And it is said, for this reason, a man leaves his father's house. For this reason. Which reason? The reason that you have just done so. And say he will join his wife, and they will be one. Most people speak of these scriptures as if it is a guidance, a foundation about marriage. But I want to introduce you something different. It is not about marriage. And I apologize for disappointing you. It is not about marriage because the Bible does not concern itself, not the Bible, the scriptures. They were never concerned about how people get married. Because marriage doesn't bring fulfillment, doesn't bring a sense of being. You can have that sense in a relationship, but being in a relationship itself is not a passport to experience it. That's where I'm talking about. And I'm not anti-married. I'm married for 28 years now, we're going. And I am happily married. I'm excited about marriage. And I love my wife more today than I loved when I saw her the first time. Because we learned this secret. For this reason. And for a female, a wife, a lady, a girl will say, but it talks about a man. And that's where we make a mistake. And today in this conversation, I'm going to walk you through some few things, and we'll create a second part. I have to break it down a little bit in different parts in order for everybody to understand. But before I break it down, I want to share something with you. I grew up in Tanzania, East Africa, in a city called Dar es Salaam. Early on in my days of growing up, there was a lot of learning that was done in an informal manner. And this learning was done through stories. I heard a lot of stories then that were told, but intended to providing or share a message. a message about life. Stories of every kind and every model and every fashion. But each and every story was well crafted to deliver a message. Majority of the people who confuse those stories as instructions, they failed. They never succeed. They were frustrated about life because the stories were not actually, the stories themselves were just a vehicle of delivering the message. The message was hidden beneath the stories. And so is the Bible. In order to understanding the Bible, and since we're in the school of elite, spiritual elite, I want to give you a secret that many people, so as many Christians, have no clue about this. The secret is very simple. The Bible was never, or the scriptures were never written for the physical mind, for the physical world, for the physical action. The Bible is the scriptures is the vehicle where a secret was hidden to transport and carry it to this day. There's a secret in each and every scripture that is hidden beneath it. And the story is the vehicle that transported that secret throughout time. So, Apostle Paul informs us the letter kills, the story or the letters that forms the word that created a sentence, and the sentence became a paragraph became a chapter, many of them became a book. If you read that word in a manner and fashion it was written, that will kill you, he says, Apostle Paul. But he says the Spirit gives life. And he also says, do not be like in the days of Moses when you are reading while your eyes are covered. You must unveil or remove the cover in your eyes to see the spiritual meaning, the secret beneath the word. And that's the challenge people are struggling every single day. Because they keep singing, talking, speaking, confessing what the story is about. And they miss the underlying meaning that it was hidden. This is the fact. The people who wrote the scriptures, they lived in a time and a place that is far different from the one we have today. They communicated, they spoke of things far different than how we speak today. And it is obvious they were somewhere in the Middle East, whether it's in Egypt, in Israel, or anywhere in between those countries and the neighboring countries. And there's a real little box there. There's a lot of them. But in that world, there was a culture. So they wrote to reflect the culture they live in. While thousands of miles far, there was India, or the Asian, as it's called. Of course, when you look at the Asia, the Middle East almost is somewhere there. But they too had a culture, traditions, and a way of looking at things. And they wrote a book called the Gitas, Bhagavad Gita. The stories that were told in the Gitas seem so fascinating and so, sci-fi nature. But those stories are the vehicle carrying the secret that is hidden beneath it. Anyone who follow or ascend to the level of the story, they will always miss the value the very secret offers. And in fact, it is because of that secret, so secret societies were born. Individuals who thought of themselves to be elite and they search for truth or the secret within these ancient books. they can discover the secret of life. That's where these organizations came. So they pass along in a secret way secret information among themselves, among its members, because they feel like the members are worthy of having the information. They will not misuse it and use it for the advancement of their own, of themselves. Of course, that is a very narrow-minded approach of, but they had to do it based on the knowledge they had and the discovery they made. Because the writer, as they wrote those, whether it's the Bhagavad Gita, whether it is the scriptures that later form part and pieces of the Bibles, or the Quran, the Buddhist book, whatever it might be, the Taoism and everything else, all these books, they're teaching us a very simple thing that you're about to discover what the writer of the Genesis said and hid the secret beneath it. I trust that you've done the very simple exercise we agreed to do. And if you haven't, in order to understand what that scripture is about and put it to practice, because in this podcast, the School of Spiritual Elite, we're not talking theories. I am challenging you as my listener every single day to test some of the theories I'm sharing with you. What I share with you is a theory to you. And before I share as a theory to you, I have already tested it and proven it in my own life. You know, and a scientist makes a discovery, before that discovery can be scientifically true, both in a science world or societies and outside that, it must be tested. But a test does not begin and say, this is the test. It begins with a theory. And the scientist himself or herself will have to test that theory first. Once the theory is proven to them, then they allow for colleagues, those of the same-minded philosophy and approach, to test it. And if it's proven by those small group, then it can be seen as validated. It is a valid theory. And then it will be exposed to the rest to test it or utilize it. And eventually becomes parcel of the tool that area of science will use, because it's a proven now. You are my colleagues, of whom I will share with you these secrets as theories that I will invite you to test them so that you can prove that which I share. But that which I share with you is just a tool. Once you take that tool, you have found a freedom. But freedom is not what you want as the end goal. When you test that freedom, when you test that theory and prove it to be true, you have transcended from just a free person to God-like person. You have truly discovered that you are the very temple of God, and within you is the Spirit of God. Because that discovery, that proven, is power. And in this podcast, that's the goal. To allow to ascend you from just a commoner to a person who found freedom in the truth. Because we're told the truth shall set you free. And in that discovery of the freedom that sets you free, you can discover or ascend to a level of Godhead where you would say, I am God. Not because you are God of the universe or who kind of the God others have seen to be, because you've discovered that you are truly the temple of the living God. The Spirit of God is within you. So Apostle Paul wrote, do not throw stones at me, because all I am doing is sharing that which is already wrapped up in the scriptures. and I'm unwrapping it for you to consume. How about that? Is it something that excites you? And if it does, I want to invite you not only to consume that which I'm sharing with you, but I want you to be able to share with your fellow friends, your groups, your social media hangouts, your communities, and your subreddits, and anywhere you are. Because the truth be told, the more people know us, the more people we share, we have more people we can compare it from, and we have more stories to prove that it is true. And the more of that happens, it encourages us to continue to pursue this journey because we know it produces the work it promises. Allow you to discover that you are God. The Spirit of God is within you, which simply means you have the ability to ascend beyond whatever circumstances you face in life. But before I end in this episode, I want to encourage you to do a very simple thing. Exercise. And that is your mission possible. To go through that which I ask and instruct early on, count from 10 to 0 and do an investigative analysis of what your life was 10 years ago in economical affair, financial affair, social affair, professional affair, spiritual affair, relationship affairs. And then take that journey 5 years later, and so as 3 years later, and now. Look at the pattern that exists in each and every period of time that you made an assessment. Write it down. And I'll tell you what you have discovered in the next episode, where we are further examining what Genesis 2:24 revealed to us. I look forward to further converse with you in the second episode.
Just notice and let it work. We'll continue next time.